Hi, this is Dan Mascari, Digital Media Producer for the National Center for Urban School Transformation. Thank you for joining our webinar today on the application process for the National Excellence in Urban Education Awards. We'll be speaking with Dr. Joseph Johnson, the Executive Director of NCUST, about the application process. And we're going to get started here in just a second. If you have any questions, you can type them into the question box or raise your hand. There will be time for questions throughout the presentation, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Johnson, Executive Director of the National Center for Urban School Transformation, and we welcome you to this webinar about our National Excellence in Urban Education Award Program. So today we're going to talk about applying for the 2013 award. Our center is dedicated to identifying, studying, and promoting the best practices of America's highest achieving urban schools. We do this for several reasons. One, we want to celebrate great urban schools and to help the public know about those schools, but also we endeavor to learn about the best practices within those schools so that we can share that information in ways that support urban districts in transforming teaching and learning throughout this country. And so our intent with this award program is to identify and award the nation's highest performing urban elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and alternative schools. We want to recognize schools that are achieving a wide array of impressive academic results. And in particular, we want to recognize schools that achieve outstanding results for every demographic group they serve. So over the past several years, since 2006, we have awarded over 60 schools in 17 different states. And we look forward to awarding more wonderful schools this year, perhaps the school or schools that you represent. So in today's webinar, we're going to do three things. One is we're going to provide general information about the award program. And then we're going to go through page by page of the application and talk about the criteria and talk about how you complete the application pages. And then we're going to talk a little bit about factors that distinguished previous winners. So to start, we're going to provide some general information about the National Excellence in Urban Education Award Program. In particular, we're going to talk about how the process works, the prizes that are available, and how schools submit applications. So first, how does this all work? The applications are available right now on the NCUST website at www.ncust.org. So we strongly recommend that if you haven't already done so, that you go to the website and right on the front page, you'll see an icon that you can click that allows you to download the application. And that is the important first step. And it's important to do that soon because the applications are due to NCUST on Wednesday, November 14th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. After that day, we will review all of the applications that we receive. Schools that meet all of the eligibility criteria that we'll be talking about today, those schools will be listed as honor roll schools. And then we will look at all of those honor roll schools and identify 25 to 30 that have the strongest evidence of strength, and those will be identified as bronze level winners. And we'll talk in just a little while about what those winners will get. Then next, we will, first we will make an announcement of those honor roll schools and those bronze level winners by December 7th. So just a few weeks after the application deadline. And then immediately thereafter, we will be arranging site visits to all of the bronze level winner schools. The visits will occur during January and February 2013. There may need to be 1 or 2 visits at the very beginning of March, but our goal is to have all of the visits completed by the end of February, by the end of the first week of March. Then, by March 15th, we will announce silver level winners. So there will be 12 to 16 silver level winners, and these will be schools that showed the greatest evidence of strength during site visits. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the webinar. Next comes our Symposium on Excellence in Urban Education. This year it will be in Houston, Texas, starting with site visits to outstanding schools on May 22nd, and then the symposium itself will take place May 23rd and May 24th. At the symposium, we will have award ceremonies for all of the winners, bronze, silver, and gold level winners. We will feature the winning schools in sessions at the symposium. And also at the symposium, we will identify 1 school in each category. So 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, 1 high school, 1 alternative school as gold level winners. So the prizes for our bronze level winners, they will receive an expenses paid trip to the National Symposium in Houston for 1 person from their school. They will also get a large banner that celebrates their accomplishment as a winner of the National Excellence in Urban Education Award. We will profile them on the NCUST website, and their school will have opportunities for their students to win cash prizes in a speech contest. We give cash prizes of $200 to the students who are winners of those prizes. Then our silver winners get all the same, but in addition, they will receive a $2,500 check from NCUST, and a large foam board poster of their check so that they can share that with their community. Also, another difference is that the silver level winners will receive 2 expense-paid trips to the symposium. So usually it is the principal and then either superintendent or another educator from that school. And then finally, at the symposium, we will announce gold level winners. So silver level, bronze and silver level winners will already know their status before the event, but at the event we will there will be 4 of those silver level winners that will be promoted, you might say, to gold level. And so those schools will receive all the same things as the silver level winners, but they will, instead of a $2,500 check, they will receive a $5,000 check for their school. So those are the prizes. So next, I want to share about how you submit an application. First, it's important to know that there are basically 2 big tasks here. One is the written application, and that's what we're going to be talking about in more detail today. So you're going to want to submit that whole application package, and you're going to submit it via regular mail, but then also submit it electronically via email. And then secondly, we will need from each applicant school a video submission. This should be done through a DVD, and the DVD needs to include video clips of 2 outstanding lessons from the school. Each video clip should be at least 10 minutes and not more than 30 minutes long. Please do not try to send the video submission electronically. We just want you to send the DVD by mail. We must receive both the written application package and the video submission by November 14th, 2012, 5 p.m. If we receive the information after that date, we cannot guarantee that the school will be considered for this award competition this year. So, questions so far? If anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and be called upon, or you can type in your question in the chat. Okay. We'll just go right ahead. If questions emerge, please feel free to ask later, or just ask when those questions occur. We're gonna move to discussion about the application itself, the criteria, and the pages. So that will be part 2. Yes.
We wanted to take a second and ask a little question about you and find out some more about you and your school. So there's going to be a poll question that is going to appear on your screen. If you could take a second and answer that.
I think that some of you actually represent districts. So if you want to indicate other, then we'll assume that that means that you are from a district or some other entity that might include elementary, middle, high schools, and alternative schools. Great. Okay, so we're seeing several elementary schools, some high schools, and probably a good number of district folks represented. That's helpful as we go into this process. Thank you. So let's move on to part 2 of this, which will be about the application criteria and pages. So the first really important issue in the application is to let us know which category the school is competing in. So if you look on page 2 of the application and you see item number 3, it asks, this school is nominated to compete in the following category, and it gives you 4 choices: elementary school, middle school, high school, alternative school. This is obviously an easy item for many schools, but a little bit more challenging for some that may have atypical or just different grade level configurations. So all schools that serve no grade higher than grade 6, we want to consider in the elementary school category. All schools that serve no grade higher than grade 9, we will expect to see in the middle school category. So this means, for instance, that a K-8 school, we will have compete with in the middle school category. Then all schools where the highest grade at the school is grade 10 or above, we will have compete in the high school category. So, for instance, the traditional junior high that might be a 6 through 9, we would have that competing in the middle school group. A school that is just a 9-10 combination would be in the high school group. A school that is thought of as a high school but is like a freshman academy, just a 9th grade school, then that school would compete in the middle school category. So the key issue is what is the highest grade served at that school. And then finally, we have alternative schools. And we recognize that different states use different terminology for alternative schools. And so we're talking about schools that primarily serve students whose academic, social, or emotional needs are often not met in typical schools. So those would be the kinds of schools that we would expect to compete in the alternative school category. Okay? So now I'm going to begin discussing specific application issues and the first one is about previous winners. So schools that have won our award previously, they have to wait 3 years before they're eligible to win again. So what this means is that schools that won our award in 2010 or any year prior to 2010 may apply for the 2013 award. So if your district has schools that were winners in 2006, 2007, any time up to 2010, they may apply for this current competition. If they won after 2010, they have to wait still. If they applied previously but did not win, if they were finalists or honor roll schools, they certainly may apply again. They're always encouraged to apply again. So on the application, page 3, it asks the question, did the school win a National Excellence in Urban Education Award in any year after 2010? So we would expect, of course, that the answer would be no. And then did the school apply for the award last year? The answer could be yes or no. If the answer, are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay. If the answer to the first question is yes, then that school is not eligible for the 2013 award. If the answer to 1A is no, then they're fine. If the answer to 1B is yes or no, if the answer is fine. It's really just for our information. Okay, next. This is an important one, non-selective admissions. This is what we call an essential criterion, meaning that there are no exceptions. Schools that apply for our award cannot require students to meet academic criteria in order to attain admission. Similarly, they can't remove students solely because they don't continue to meet academic criteria. So, in essence, the schools that are our winners are schools that either serve the children in the neighborhood around the school, or if they are a magnet school or a charter school, they accept students openly. If enrollment is tight, they select students through a lottery basis, but they do not weed out students on the basis of any academic criteria. Also, it's important to note that there are some schools that may have selective programs within a school. So, in other words, there may be a school that says, we're a neighborhood school, but we're also a magnet for a gifted program. And that may be okay if less than 10% of the students enrolled are in that selective program. If that is the case, the application data have to be disaggregated so that we're only seeing the application data for the neighborhood students or the students who were admitted to that school without the selective admissions criteria. If the school has a selective program and the percentage of students in that program is greater than 10% of the entire student enrollment, the school is simply not eligible for this competition. So in the application, you see a page that looks like this, page 3, and it asks these questions. So, does the school require all new students to meet academic criteria? The answer has to be no. And then for 2B, does the school have any programs that require students to meet academic criteria, grade point averages, test scores, et cetera, et cetera? If the answer is yes, we have to see that the percentage of students enrolled in those programs is smaller than 10%. And then again, the data throughout the rest of the application has to be focused just on those students who were not enrolled in the selective admissions program. And then finally, this page asks, are students denied continued enrollment if their academic performances fall below certain levels? Again, the answer has to be no. In essence, we want to include schools that are achieving success with typical students. We like to say we want to see atypical results for typical students. So that's the spirit of this program. The next important criterion has to deal with urban location. And so this also is an essential criterion, no exceptions. The school must be located in a metropolitan area with a population of 50,000 or more residents. That's not 50,000 students. That's 50,000 residents. And there are times when the city may not have a population of 50,000, but the U.S. Census Bureau may list that city as a part of a metropolitan statistical area. So if in doubt, you can go to the U.S. Census Bureau's website, search for metropolitan statistical areas. You can find the list, and if your city is on that list, then you can be eligible because your school is located in a metropolitan area with a population of 50,000 or more residents. So the application item looks like this, and of course we would expect that the answer would be yes. We would expect to see yes there. Next, attendance rates. And this is a required criterion for all applications except for alternative schools, and you'll see this language a lot here, and I'll explain more about alternative schools in a little while. But basically, the average student attendance rate must exceed 92% in each of the past 2 academic years. So you see a question on page 4 of the application that asks, did the school maintain a rate of average daily attendance equal to or greater than 92%? Then it asks, what was the average attendance rate for 2011-2012, and then for 2010-2011. We would expect to see a number there 92% or higher. Sometimes schools have asked, what about rounding? Sorry, we don't round. So if it's not at least 92%, then you don't meet this criterion and you're not eligible to be considered. Okay, low income criteria. Again, no exceptions to this one. If you're competing in the elementary school category, so highest grade is grade 6 or lower, at least 60% of students must meet low income criteria, and this would be free or reduced price lunch criteria as in the federal school lunch program, or if your state uses other criteria in lieu of free and reduced price lunch, then we will accept that as well. If the highest grade served is grade 9 or lower, so you're competing in our middle school category, at least 50% of the students must meet low income criteria. And if the highest grade served is over grade 9, so you're competing in the high school category, at least 40% of the students must meet low income criteria. Again, no rounding. These are the absolute minimums. So if you look at the application on page 4, it will ask what percentage actually of students meet free reduced price lunch or state low income criteria. And so it's asking what's the number of students and then what's the percentage of students for the current year, 2012-2013, the last year, 2011-2012, and the prior year, 2010-2011. And we expect to see 60% in each one of those answers for elementary schools, at least 50% in each one of those for middle schools, at least 40% in each one of those for high schools. Okay. The next criterion is hugely important. There is an exception for alternative schools. The percentage of students proficient, actually, and it should be proficient or advanced, in 2011 and 2012 must be higher than the average percentage of all schools in the state with similar grade levels. So the school has to exceed that state average in at least half of the subject areas grade levels assessed in both 2011 and 2012. So in essence, schools have to be, even though they serve low-income community, even though they may have many challenges, they have to be among the top half of all schools within their state. The truth is, many of our winners are in the top quarter, and some are in the top 10% and the top 5% of their state. So schools that exceed the state average in a higher percentage of subject areas and grade levels may be more likely to advance to the finalist stage, or in this case, we would say they would be more likely to become our bronze level winners. So what does that look like on the application? So on pages 5 and 6, you see tables that look like what you see at the bottom here. And on this, what we're asking is the percentage of students who are proficient or advanced in each subject area tested within your state. So obviously, if one of these subject areas is not tested, then you would leave that blank. If certain grade levels are not assessed, you would leave those blank. But what we want to see is the percentage in each category who are proficient or advanced. Don't forget those advanced students for each one of these. So as you work on that, and of course what you're seeing on your screen is just a few of the grade levels, but it's the same. You're going to do this both for the 2011-2012 data in Table A, and then you'll do the very same thing for the 2010-2011 data in Table B. And this becomes critical information for us. Now, the next issue is really an extension of what I just shared. We want to see high proficiency rates for every racial ethnic group that you serve at your school. So for every racial ethnic group with at least 20 test takers, the percentage of students who are proficient or advanced in 2011-2012 has to be higher than the average percentage of all schools in the state that have similar grade levels. So, for instance, the percentage of Latino or Hispanic students proficient or advanced in both 2011 and 2012 has to be higher than the percentage of all students, not just the percentage of Latino and Hispanic students across the state, but all students in the state who achieve proficiency at similar grade levels in the same years. So in essence, what we do when we receive applications from schools that are in a particular state, we will contact that state either through their website or sometimes through telephone, and we acquire information about the percentage of students statewide who achieved proficiency or advanced scores at each grade level and each subject area. And so when we receive your application, we will compare your overall school data with those statewide percentages, but we'll also look at every racial ethnic group with at least 20 test takers from your school and to see how each racial ethnic group compared in the same regard. So for both 2011 and 2012. So on the application page, and this is page 7 of the application, we'll be asking you to indicate which racial ethnic groups you served. We'll be asking you to indicate the percentage of students who are proficient or advanced in each of these subjects. And then we'll be looking to see how they did in comparison to the overall average of students within your state. Next, we look for high achievement for English learners. So if more than 20 students are identified as English learners, the school has to present evidence that a high percentage of students are moving toward English proficiency as well as moving toward academic proficiency. And the evidence has to show that the percentage demonstrating proficiency on state language assessments, so whatever language proficiency assessment your state administers to comply with Title III of the federal education legislation, we look to see that there is growth at your school on that measurement. As well, we look to see that there is growth for English learners in terms of their proficiency on the academic assessments. We also look to see if there is growth for English learners and that they are moving to higher levels of English proficiency, for instance, moving from the beginner to intermediate level, as well as higher academic levels, moving from, for instance, below basic to basic. So in the application on page 8, you see two tables, Table D and Table E, and both of those tables give you an opportunity to share with us the numbers of English learners, but also they give us the opportunity to see the percentage of English learners who advance to a higher level of proficiency with the English language. As well, Table E gives us information about the growth that you're seeing and the percentage of English learners who are achieving proficiency in each subject area. So with students with disabilities, if more than 20 students are identified within your school, then the school must present evidence that a high percentage of students are achieving or progressing toward academic proficiency. We will look for evidence that tells us that the percentage demonstrating proficiency on state assessments is higher than statewide averages for all students, or it's increasing compared to the prior year in at least 2 academic subjects. And evidence might also indicate that students with disabilities are achieving higher academic achievement levels. So even if they're not achieving proficiency, we should see movement among those students such that they're moving from below basic to basic, as an example. So on the application, you'll see pages 9 and 10 where you share with us the number of students with disabilities enrolled in the school, and then the percentage of students with disabilities who advanced to a higher performance level in 2011-2012. And then on Table G, you will have a place for you to share with us the growth in the percentage of students with disabilities achieving proficiency in each of the subject areas. Next, we look at out-of-school suspensions and expulsions. So the total number of days students were out of school because of suspensions has to be calculated. And the sum must be smaller than the total number of students enrolled. What does that mean? Well, on the application on page 11, what you see is a table that asks you first how many students are enrolled in the school in each of those categories. Then we ask how many days students were out of school due to suspensions. Not how many suspensions. We want to know how many days were lost to suspensions. As well, we want to know how many days were lost to expulsions. And we want that for every category within your school. And then we look at that final, which is the addition of those two columns to the left. So a total number of student days lost to suspension or expulsion. And then what we do is we compare the numbers in that final column with the numbers in the first column. And quite simply, we look to make sure that the number in the final column is lower than the number in the first column. So it gives us a relatively simple way of assuring that all students and all groups of students are staying in school. Next, adequate yearly progress. All applicants must present AYP data for the last 2 years. However, it's very important to understand that schools are not required to meet AYP criteria. We used to require that they meet AYP criteria. However, just to be blunt and honest, our representatives in Congress have not made adequate yearly progress in reauthorizing this legislation. And so in some states where the criteria for meeting AYP are bumping up very close to 100%, unfortunately, AYP may not be the best measure of strength. But we still want to see the data, and schools that meet all the AYP criteria may be more likely to advance in this process than schools that do not meet AYP criteria. So on the application on page 12, it will ask, did your school achieve AYP based on the 2011-2012 data? You may answer yes or no, but if the answer is no, we want you to specify what criteria were not met. Similarly, we will ask you, did your school achieve AYP based on the 2010-2011 data? And if the answer is no, then we want you to indicate which criteria were not met. Now, on page 13 of the application, we're going to ask you for some information, a short narrative about evidence that your students are developing strong levels of success in STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And this evidence might include the percentage of students who are demonstrating proficiency on state assessments in math and science. It might be that the percentage of students participating in or completing rigorous classes that are designed to build knowledge and skills in STEM subjects. It might be the percentage of students participating in extracurricular activities that relate to STEM fields. It might be the performance of students in STEM competitions, or it might be all of the above, or it might be other evidence of accomplishment. But we believe that all schools should be educating students such that they are well prepared for the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics careers and just ways of life that abound in this century. And so we want to see evidence of that in the application. Then there are other one-page narratives. We want to see on page 14 evidence of high-quality, rigorous curricula. And then on page 15, evidence of engaging, effective instruction. On page 16, we are looking for evidence of positive school climate, particularly looking at the relationships among students, teachers, parents, other stakeholders. On page 17, other evidence of academic or extracurricular evidence. On page 18, evidence of student success when they advance to the next educational level. So this could be evidence that our elementary school students are doing well when they go to middle school. This could be evidence that our high school students are doing well as they graduate and show us that they meet eligibility criteria for college or post-secondary education, or evidence about the percentage of students who do well on college entrance exams, or the percentage of students who go on and matriculate in some post-secondary education. These narratives are all really important. There may be many schools that meet those base criteria, and those will all be honor roll schools, but we're going to have to make selections about which of those honor roll schools will be bronze level winners. And so as we attempt to distinguish great schools from other great schools, it'll be important that we see those narratives. However, it's important to note that in each case, you're limited to only one page. So, there are some additional criteria for high schools. So each high school has to give us evidence regarding the percentage of first-year students advancing to the next year. So this would be, for instance, in a 9 through 12 high school, we might look at the percentage of 9th grade students who earned sufficient credit to become sophomores the next year. If it's a 10 through 12 high school, it would be the percentage of 10th grade students who advanced to the 11th grade by the next year. Next, we want to see the percentage of students earning college credit or participating in AP or IB assessments. And then finally, for high schools, we also want to see cohort graduation and dropout rates. And these items are all addressed in pages 19 through 21 of the application. And then finally, for alternative schools, it's important to note that 2012, 2013 will be the first year in which NCUST awards alternative schools. And so we don't have a baseline yet from which to do this. So you will see throughout that alternative schools must meet the urban location criterion. They may not have selective admissions, and they must meet the low income criteria. However, we don't necessarily have specific minimum criteria for all the other categories. So we will be asking alternative schools to provide us information on each of these categories. However, the alternative schools will be reviewed and considered on a competitive basis. So I have shared a whole lot here about the application, and so I'm going to pause and take a breath and see if I might be able to answer any questions. And it looks like we might have one.
Okay, so we're going to unmute Ann Stockwell if you want to ask your question.
Ms. Stockwell? Okay.
So Ann's question was, Texas has not yet set proficient and advanced standards for new state tests. What standards are Texas schools expected to follow in regards to the 2011-2012 data?
Okay, so that's a great question. So if the state has not determined what would constitute proficiency or what would constitute advanced performance on the most recent state assessment, the assessment that was given in 2011, 2012, then what we're going to ask Texas schools to do is to share data from the prior year, 2010, 2011. And there are one or two other states where that may be an issue. In some of the cases, states are endeavoring to come up with that determination quickly. But if that information isn't available, then what we'll be asking potential applicants to do is, in essence, just work a year back and to but please make sure that it's clear to us that you are reporting 2010, 2011 data. But because we do ask for 2 years of data, then we'll also ask for the year prior to that, the 2009, 2010 data. Are there other questions that we can ask or that we can answer? Okay.
We'd like to take another second and learn some more about you and your school. So there's going to be another poll question that appears on your screen. If you could take a moment and answer that.
Okay.
And if you do think of other questions after reviewing the application, you can always email ncust@mail.sdsu.edu or look at our website, and a lot of the questions can be answered there at ncust.org.
Okay. So we're going to move to the final part of this presentation, where we want to talk a little bit about factors that have distinguished previous winners. So within the application, we have seen oftentimes that schools that set themselves apart are showing outstanding achievement for all student groups. So in particular, winning schools exceeded minimum achievement criteria for every demographic group they served. Also, we saw that winning schools have at least 2 years of evidence of strength. So there are some schools that may be proud, rightfully so, that they meet our eligibility criteria, and that may earn them an honor roll distinction. However, it's important to note that those schools may not still be bronze level winners because this is a competitive process. And so the ones that have the strongest chance are those that exceed those minimum criteria for every demographic group, and they've done so for at least 2 solid years. So then once we select the bronze level winners, we will be doing site visits, and folks often ask, well, what distinguishes those schools that get promoted to the silver level winner level? And so there are a few things that are consistent issues, and so I'm going to just briefly point those out. First, in those winning schools, what we see is lots of evidence of curricular rigor for all students. So in particular, what we see is that when we go into those schools, we go into classrooms, we see lesson activities that are clearly aligned to challenging, rigorous standards. And it's not just that something is posted, but it's that students knew what they were expected to learn. Often it's the students knew why this was an important thing for them to learn. The level of cognitive demand in these schools is higher than what we see in more typical schools. But it's also important to know that teachers seem driven to ensure that all students demonstrated attainment of that curricular rigor. One of the very important curricular elements that we see in these schools relates to writing, in that in these very successful schools, we have found that they have used writing as a tool across all subject areas as a way to help students demonstrate deeper levels of understanding, whether we're talking about science or social studies or even mathematics. We see students writing, explaining, describing in a way that evidences their deeper understanding of the content. Also related to rigor, what we see in these winning schools is that students with different language backgrounds, most students with disabilities, and other students who might have special needs, they were often expected to achieve the same rigorous curricular objectives that other students were expected to master. So, however the programs were designed, they were designed with the same end in mind, in that students were being challenged to achieve the same outstanding learning results. When special services were provided, those special services were tailored in a way to help ensure that students received the help that they needed in order to achieve that curricular rigor. Another important aspect of what we see in our winning schools tends to be a lot of evidence of instructional effectiveness. So typically in the winning schools, we see lots of consistent evidence of high rates of student interaction that are focused on the academic objective being taught. So in other words, students are engaged in instruction. In many classrooms, that engagement was thoughtful, it was focused, it was at a challenging level, and we saw teachers who were skillful in ensuring that all students were engaged in those rich conversations that were leading to deep understandings of content. Also related to instructional effectiveness, we frequently in those winning schools saw evidence of students answering questions that demanded higher levels of cognition. So students were not simply answering questions about who, what, and when, but they were also discussing why and probing how. We saw students describing and analyzing and synthesizing in ways that evidenced, again, deeper levels of thinking, deeper levels of understanding. Next, we see in these winning schools great consistency across classrooms. It's so certainly in every school that we visit, we see strong teaching, but in those highest performing schools, we see great consistency across grade levels and across academic disciplines. So those are the things that we have seen that are maybe factors that may help explain why some schools are silver and gold level winners, where other schools are just our bronze level winners. So, important dates to keep in mind throughout all of this. First, right now, today, applications are available. They are due November 14th, 2012. We will be announcing honor roll schools and bronze level winners on December 7th. We'll be doing site visits in January and February, and then announcing the silver level winners on March 15th, and the symposium will be held May 22nd through 24th, 2013. For more information, one option is to ask questions right now. Another option is to go to our website, www.ncust.org. Another option is to call us at 619-594-7905. We would love to see applications from your schools, and we believe that this process is not only a great opportunity for us to identify strong schools, but it's also a good process that allows schools to look at themselves and identify their strengths, as well as identify areas where they still have opportunities to grow. And so whether or not your schools ultimately apply this year, we hope that looking at this can be a growth opportunity for them. So I'm going to pause again for one more opportunity for folks to ask questions.
And if you would please raise your hand or type the question into the question panel. And at the same time, I'm going to ask one more poll of our audience. Just we're interested to find out how you heard about the NCUST Excellence in Urban Education Awards.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and we very much look forward to receiving applications or even receiving questions about applications. We know that this is a lot of information. We've tried to make it as streamlined as possible, but we also have this very, very challenging task of differentiating among outstanding schools. And so we take that responsibility seriously. Thank you again for taking the time to be with us, and we look forward to recognizing your schools.
Okay. Yeah, if there are no additional questions, we do appreciate your participation in this webinar, and a recorded version of the webinar will be available on ncust.org, our website, within a week, along with the presentation that was presented during this webinar. Thank you.